start. By the way, I feel that I would like to make these two videos public. I'll be editing them and uploading them. Just let me know if it's all right for all of you. But I do feel that it will help for those who are following and aren't here. In other occasions, I'll leave it as it is, but in this specific occasion, I did the same also in Spanish. I also made it public because it's so overwhelming how much this whole thing has progressed. The amount of hours of developments that have been upon this, and to have just at least a more synthetic place to stand on, I think will help, especially at this moment where it's so abundant. Now it's kind of calmed down. Have you noticed that breathing has calmed down? It's not so. Alejandra's continued doing her interviews and all that, but it's not like there was a moment that every day there was new. Now it's kind of the breathing has kind of calmed down and it's more settling the what has appeared, So I think it's more in a kind of integration of all the things that have merged. Which is good, and this is how it is. It's like different biorhythms, it's like sometimes you're running, sometimes you're walking, sometimes you're sitting, sometimes, a process of consciousness is the same, sometimes you're in a car, sometimes you're in a plane, sometimes you're just having a stroll. Consciousness also has these biorhythms in the same way, yeah. So when the wave comes and things start to accelerate, you just have to grab your board and go on the wave. And when things calm down, you just go into that process and you just follow, the ups and downs and all that. So what I wanted to look in today, let me go in. What I wanted to look in today, so we already saw the base notions. We kind of saw, which for me is essential. The base notions are essential, very important to have that grasp. Then we went into the path of construction towards a new matrix of the psyche. That's where we saw the synchronicities and the main events, yeah, which mainly are the change of calendars from Julian to Gregorian. And then these seconds that have been added with the atomic clock, which are underlying the construction of this new psyche, this new matrix, Matriz of the psyche. And then we saw how we were able to have the opportunity to live the process or the awareness of what had happened since 1972, well, really 1971, which is when they withdraw the gold from the dollar, yeah, the American currency. And then 1972, it's the first second, and then that goes up to 2016, where there's 27 added seconds. And what we're able to do in this period of time, which started on the 11th of June, if you remember, the 11th of June, with this synchronicities of a whole bunch of dates. It kind of all started with this Israeli spy who came up with information about what Nisman, this prosecutor of Argentina, knew about the Kirchner, well, all that, and there we saw all these kind of, very, very, very clear synchronicity of numbers, and that was just a window of opportunity of absorbing what already had, what Earth had already absorbed in these 27, well, in these, not 27 years, sorry, in these since 1972 to 2016 with these seconds. Yeah. So now after seeing that, yeah, because it was the beginning, the end, 2016. 2016, what's important to know about 2016 is that it's the last year of the 504 apparatus. Yeah. We are about to end the 505 apparatus. Yeah. I think there was a sum there that was very interesting. It's summing up the two apparatus. If you sum up 504 plus 505, yes, you have 1009. Why is that interesting? 1009. Do you remember that the word Psyche in Spanish summed up 91? Remember 91, and 91 also is the code of Madrid, which is the capital of Spain. Yeah, we saw the importance of the Spanish alphabet in the ordering of this matrix. So if we see the end year 2016 and the year that we end, which we are ending the 505 apparatus, and we see the link between both apparatus, we have 1009. So we have 91 there. Yeah, can you see it? We have 91 and we have two zeros in the middle. We have 91 from the future and two zeros in the middle. A zero is always a solar reset. Yeah, it's like resetting the whole system. It's not so much a reset, actually. It's an update. It's reset as an update. Yeah. Because you're not starting at the beginning, you increasing something. So, well, okay, that was 2016, the last year, and in 2020 we having this opportunity that went from the 11th of June up to the 26th of July. It was that crazy period. Where things were just, really, really, when something, like kind of artists and things like that, or musicians, and they in that moment of that something is a song or an album is emerging, and they feel it they feel it in all their levels, they just notice that the lava is coming out of the volcano kind of thing. And there is very seismic moments. Now, I think it's kind of cooled down. And it's perfect to see a synthesis. Yeah, when it's cooled down, it's very good to look back and see a synthesis of that. So what I would like to look into today is actually the structure of this matrix, like actually understanding it. And we already kind of, at this point, we already understand that what's the importance of a psyche, what's the importance of the psyche is kind of like a translation, a filter, like the conditions of a uterus in order to bring new versions into our mentality, and from the mentality to begin to print a new neurological networks. So basically a new brain which opens a new heart, and that's at the end, it just the whole body breathes a new possibility. Yeah. The destiny at the end of this is biological. Yeah. But the psyche is approaching new versions in previous steps, we could say. Yeah. So I think we have a kind of an idea of the importance of the psyche, and if the structure of the matrix of our psyche, of the conditions of our uterus aren't, are closed, or they limited, or they restricted, or they are very much, could we say, interfere, what happens? The mentality, especially the main big problem, is that the mentality stays in a loop. That's when there's a type of psyche that makes our mentality, the mentality is already, remember that possibility of explaining it to ourselves, to others, to formulating the dialect, formulating the understanding of things. And it's like, I always knew it, but I knew it in my mind, but I never knew, I never was being able to explain it this way. I wasn't able to see and really grasp it at this level. Yeah. And that's when it prints into our brain. Yeah. You see, the thing that science tries to do is to find everything of consciousness in the brain. And it's ridiculous because there are things that consciousness is formulating, is developing, and it hasn't been printed yet. So you can't find it in the brain. You see, because, well, that's because they think it's all, consciousness is reduced to the brain. That's the main issue. So they try and, you see, there's consciousness, whatever is occurring in one's consciousness is the future brain. So you can't see it in the brain now, you see. Good. So characteristics of a new matrix of the psyche. This I kind of explained it to you guys, and it's the main, like, what is this new matrix of the psyche? What is it bringing? And I would say the key thing is bringing it. It is. I also compared, or I put the analogy of the psyche like if it was a word, if you're using the program word, yeah. So that is a filter that allows you to express something. Yeah, it's not very good for expressing images, but it's good for expressing words. You see, so depending on the psyche, you can bring out and express into your mentality and print into the world in a one way or another. This Gregorian calendar, what it brought was first a kind of a disconnection and a reconnection of something. Yeah? So I think the best thing is to start looking into these three areas. These three areas of the psyche and these three areas of communication with which we are communicated. And there, okay, this is the thing of trying not to reduce a definition of any of them, okay? Just kind of always keep it open, but let's put some words to begin to orient ourselves, yeah? One way of seeing it would be, I think the one that has communicated most is a communication with oneself. And when you're talking about a communication with oneself, you're communicating with what? With a particular consciousness, yourself. It's like with your own soul or your own identity of consciousness. You see, it's a communication within that. So, like the private area, yeah? Now, you see, that particular consciousness is just a kind of an unfoldment of what we could call an impersonal consciousness. So, a consciousness which is more general, we could say. I like to call this area a general consciousness. This is a particular consciousness. That's why Alejandro kind of started to use this word of, okay, what is the word that would be linked with it? Let's kind of recover these contaminated words, okay, from spirituality, religion, contaminated with our own. It's not that the word in itself is contaminated, what the interpretations within that word is contaminated. A word is always clean. A word is like, it always has in its genesis a purity in its design. The thing is that when you use a word which the interpretations are so close, the mentality linked with that word is so close, it's better not to use that word, because the people are not going to be connecting with the word, they're going to be connecting with the interpretation of the word, you see. So that's why at the beginning of this process, it was so much about let's not use contaminated terminology. Not because the words in its essence, in its genesis, had anything wrong with it, because there's no such thing as all words come from the structure of space and time. Okay, so that means it has a legitimate, all word, there's no such thing as a word that is, probably what we need is to see if I can link with that word without my own interpretation glued to it. If I can use that word as a notion to navigate my mentality, but if I have too much restrictions on that word or too much baggage on the, it's gonna weigh me down. So better not use that word for now, you know. I think we're at a moment that, especially in this process, that the technical aspect has been so good, and it's still so good, but now we can go back to these words. We can go back and see them and reread them, and without falling into those interpretations and baggage and associations and moral views and values and blah blah blah, we can just kind of because a word is never something that defines. Actually, it's not. That's not a word in its real sense. In its pure sense, a word is something that it gives you a point to stand on, but it's to open. It's to open something. It's not to restrict. It's actually to open. But you do need to have a minimum, a minimum standpoint on it. That's why the definitions of the dictionary, when you want to really you want the word to talk to you, you can't just go to the dictionary, because the dictionary is what has socially been agreed of what that word means. You see, yeah, okay, but there's another area of the word that it has nothing to do with the social agreement or the social expression that we know of that word up to now. So words evolve because they have a negative. You see, words have a negative. They have more to it than what the dictionary says. Okay, so that's important. So it kind of like spirit, espíritu. Yeah. So that is kind of, it's the sense of a general consciousness. Yeah. By the way, for example, the typical thing in spirituality is that they would see spirit as superior consciousness. You see, that's the problem. It's not superior. It just technically, that doesn't make sense. If you look at it technically, it just doesn't make sense to say that it's superior. Maybe that it has an order of relationship that is greater. Okay, that is different. It just means it can include more elements. But it's like saying, it becomes stupid if you see it technically. It's like saying, let me see if I can find a ridiculous example. It's kind of like saying that it's superior, okay, and it's superior, the skin that I have on my body. I'm just looking at as an example, the skin that I have, because it includes and touches all elements. It's superior. It's more superior than I'm not sure, than a cell of my liver. You see, when you see it technically, it's like superior just doesn't work there. You see, no, probably it has a greater margin of inclusion. You see, that's when spirituality, and there's a lot of values, there's a lot of things like that, and we have to clean, because if not, we won't see it correctly. We won't see it appropriately how it is. Yeah, because my Earth isn't superior to us. You see, that would be it has a greater structure. It means that it has a more legitimate structure. So what is very technically is that there can be Earth without me, there can't be me without Earth. So there's an order of relationship, there's a hierarchy. That's not superior, inferior. You see all that out. Well, let's see how we can redefine those words for now, but now they're not useful, you know. Good. So, and then we have, you see, when you have, or what we could call the, you know, if we have like nothingness or this general consciousness, and then it has questions, well, and it has different questions, what it's going to want to do is explore each question. It's going to want to divide itself to have different angles of experience and different angles of vision. That's when we have these souls, these identities within spirit called souls. Okay? And each one has its own perfume, nature, identity. Oh, a clean definition of soul, it's that it's a design of truth. It's a design of truth. Okay. So it has that design of truth in it. And I like to see the souls as it's like a library. It's like it's just a minute. I think I put this example the other day. I'm not sure that you have the whole library, which contains and then you have these sections within the library, and each section has a book. Okay, the soul would be kind of like a book within a section. So it's going to have a more focus on science fiction or etc. Okay, that's what the soul has, a personality kind of. Not sure if personality is a good word. It has a point of focus, a design of truth, a kind of, you know, which evolves, by the way. It doesn't just stay there, but it has a kind of angle of exploration. That's why it's limited, because it has an angle. This doesn't have an angle. This has an angle. Can you see that? This already kind of cuts. And that's why if the soul is immature, it's going to call that which I don't see and is dark for me, that black stuff is evil. Good is what's within this that I can see, which is the light aspects of it. That'll be a kind of immature way of interpreting it. Not that, okay, this is the reach of my angle, and what is dark is the future angles that I haven't been able to open up to yet. It changes a lot, yeah. So it's not like the dark is the bad and the light is the good and all this battle thing. It's just, okay, I have a limit, I have a restriction to the points of view. And that's very good for spirit because it has different points of view, you see? So it's very functional, it's very technically elegant. Not only elegant, it's just, it works, you know? At the end, you know, shit must work, you know? That's how it should be, you know? It's not so romantic, it's more technological. And then the soul, what it's gonna wanna do is, because at the end, you see, the soul has a consciousness that is non-material, meaning we can say that it exists without a body. It exists without a physical, you know, okay, so it has that nature. But at the end, where does spirit learn? You know, where does it really, really learn? Where's its greatest interest? It wants to go to the, you know, we could say that the physical is kind of the slowest, and the slowest, not, we see association. Slow is worse than fast. It's just association. You see, all speeds are needed, but the fastest is wanting to have a possibility to connect with the slowest, because that's where the learning actually takes. It's like I said, the soul can kind of learn it as a recipe, but it needs a body to cook it. It needs a kitchen. And that's where you learn. That's where you learn how to cook, not just knowing recipes. It's okay. So it allows the soul to have experiences. Physics. Now, when a soul has experience, now this is the thing. The whole physical manifested reality is like the soul of spirit, or the soul of the space-time structures. The whole thing is like its whole soul. It's just a non-divided, okay, but expressed. So it is containing the whole thing. Now, each of the relationships within it, yeah, so all the souls that have projected themselves into a genetic projection, that's where we are going to have this kind of beautiful combination, which is within a general consciousness, there's going to be particular consciousnesses relating with each other. What is that? There's going to be a structure and there's going to be contents. It's going to be a structure and there's going to space-time structures, the different particular consciousness, the souls, and the genetic projections and its relationships. That's why this one of the things that we relate this calculator at the bottom is my communication with others. See, my communication with others, which in a way, and see, the soul in the body is like a communication in a way with another, because it's communicating with something that's it's like in a different scale of frequency. See? Another thing about spirituality, where elevate your frequency, like high frequency is good, low frequency is bad. You see, that's a lack of technical understanding. That's a lack. You need all of them. You need the whole rainbow. It's like saying that purple is better than red. It just doesn't. You see, when that's the kind of psyche that we have to cleanse. That kind of filter of translation. No, I don't. Personally, I'm not going to see the life through those. I just don't see it. It doesn't have the coherency. It doesn't have the coherency for me. And I guess within you, if you don't see coherency, you're not going to go there. Yeah. So, so we have these three areas. Okay, it's very important to, each area to have a kind of like autonomy within itself. And it's to register that autonomy within itself. You see. Because then you can create the membranes of communication. But if they all stuck together, that's where the confusion, fusion, they all fusion together. That's where the confusion comes. When they all kind of like, you don't really know, because it's very different when I'm communicating privately within myself. That when I'm kind of communicating with reality, and when I'm communicating with others, there's a clear difference there. And it's very simple, but it's very important that it's gonna have like a whole different set of rules. If I'm communicating with others, I have to take into consideration what the other is bringing to the conversation. But when I'm talking to me, I don't have that restriction. I have it's different, And with reality, it's very much different, yeah. So we have to begin to locate these three conversations. Now, if you can see, when we say communication with oneself, communication with others, and communication with environment, with reality, which is the point of reference? Like, from where are we looking at those communications? Which points of reference are we taking? We're taking oneself as the point of reference. And this is important because that's through where you mainly experience life. Like through your oneself is the point of reference. Because you see, now this is where we can also change the point of reference, because it's not, would you say that the space in the model represents a membrane? Yes. I think it's very important. Like if you remember at the beginning of the calculators, I'm going to put this here. There, in that image, can you see that? Do you guys see the calculators there? Is that, I'm not sure. Yes. At the beginning, the first, you see the one at the bottom on the right, that was the first thing that started to emerge. And that was just Alejandra realizing about the importance of these. Well, we always knew the importance of these seconds, yeah? But she just started to say, okay, this 20, like she started to see a relationship with the ordering of the letters. Already, she had opened this. She started to open this in the. If you remember, we started to talk about JKL. Do you remember JKL? Like a kind of fourth field. By the way, I'm gonna number the fields. That's very important. Yeah, I'll do that. So this is how it came out that way, but that was building to something different. It is building towards this whole matrix, but it doesn't come out like at once. It comes slowly. So at the one at the bottom right, you can see that there are some that are green and some that are yellow. The ones that are green are the seconds that were included in the 31st of June, because there's two dates that they put the seconds, the 31st of June and the 31st of December. Yeah. The ones that are on 31st of June are in green, and the ones that are on 31st of December are yellow. Okay, just for you to see that difference. 31st of December is the last day of the Ring of Fire. So it has a significance. And the 31st of June, okay, it's the last day of month 6. It has its importance. But it's like there is more, she put the green as like a green light. So it's like, okay, when it's in that part of the year, it's, you know, it's not so challenging. When it's yellow, okay, there it's challenging, you know, it's more challenging. But when it's more challenging, it's because it has more opportunity and danger. Yeah, the more the danger, the more the opportunity. But it kind of started all together. You see, all together there, and it's just like mashed up together. And then it started to see a differentiation. Then you can see the one at the top. Can you see it? You see? So it started to have this membrane that differentiates the three. And well, I remember saying to Alejandra, speaking with her, and I said, I think it would be good to separate them because it gives you that breathing within them. See? I know that there's a line there, but it's not enough. It's like it's still a bit of a feeling of claustrophobia, you know? It's like I'm too, you know, it's better if there's a bit of space, not disconnected, but a bit of space. And then it came out with this one on the left. That is the big one. That I would say that is kind of like the one that we're using, yeah. And like Jeff says, that space and there the space, if you can see, it has a number. Yeah. Why is that? Because that is the internal combination each calculator has. Okay. Well, I'll explain that in a second. But okay. But there's 3 different areas. Okay. And there's a membrane, so they are differentiated, but they are interrelated, interconnected. Okay. So oh, the 30th of June, sorry. The 30th of June, not the 31st. So the 30th of June and the 31st of December. Those are the 2 dates that they put it. So the last day of June, the last day of December. Now, of course, we could also, and it's also pretty good. I like to do it also. It's like, well, one thing is how I'm communicating with myself, how I'm communicating with the environment, and how I'm communicating with others, which is the most important one, because that's your reference point. And whatever distortions are going to happen, mainly in those communications, mainly have to do with that position of oneself. So the kind of cleansing of the one that is making more transparent, more more open has to be this one. Yeah? But it's very different to say how the environment communicates with my soul, or how the environment communicates with my body, or how the environment communicates with others, with socially. It's different, isn't it? Or how the people communicate with environments or the reality. So okay, so what we see here is that depending on the points of reference, we have the communication in one direction or the other. What is important is that all of them are like in an integrative feedback system. That is, you must never lose track of that. It's like it's always in a double direction feedback system. But to be able to focus on one's position, it's like, okay, let's position on myself. Because that's kind of through where I experience the world. So okay, let's start there, because that's from where I can. Now, what is happening is seen with this explanation. What is kind of happening with the Julian calendar? It is helping very much this communication here. Yeah, because when the digital consciousness projects itself analogical, it's not all its lucidez, not only lucidity, lucidez. I'd like to use that word because another word, lucidez. If I have any translators, lucidez. Lucidity. Yeah, but it's like, like lucido, but lucidity not only as light, it's like as awareness, like of wisdom. Like clarity. Yeah. Okay, that's a good word. Yeah, like a clarity. Each soul has an angle of clarity. Now, when it projects itself analogically, it doesn't have all that clarity at once. It has, that's where the amnesia kind of thing happens. It's like it doesn't have, so there's a differentiation into the level of clarity the soul has, and the level of clarity that is exported into the genetic projection experience. Yeah. Then what tends to happen, or what should happen, is that when the genetic projection, meaning the body, the person, is growing, it should grow in greater filtrations of the soul consciousness. And that's the kind of like, okay, yeah, connecting with the soul kind of thing. Yeah. Now, this is important for all of us. Yeah. The problem is this thing, is that the Julian was like, okay, this has a kind of range here. Yeah? So when it projects, just imagine it decreases like that. And then it starts increasing with its own development, and this lucidity of the digital starts to become available in the analogical, okay? And it's like connecting. It's like that's the whole thing of connecting with the soul, so the soul can give me orientation and all that. But then there's a point. Look what's going to happen. Because the soul hasn't got the whole thing. What happens when this starts to reach the angle of lucidity that was available here? Can you see that? Which aspects can increase the soul? Because from now, the soul was increasing the genetic projection. Now, which is increasing the soul? You see? And that was not connected in the Julian calendar. It was just like this connection. And another thing was, the intention was for the genetic projection to avoid errors. So like anticipation seen as not going through bad situations. So it's like the genetic projection connecting with that area to not suffer, to not have an error. So kind of like the direction it was taking was a kind of like utopia, kind of everything is good, hippie ideal. But that's not very good for reality. That sounds terrible. The hippie dream is terrible for reality because it would be perfect or it would be too good. But where reality learns, because in a way it already has a kind of, its nature is that just that like perfect state of not needing and all. It's like that. So it needs actually for there to be errors. See, and the direction was going that. So there is that's always when there's a change of calendar or there's a change in time, it's always first agreed within the space-time structures. Okay. Remember, calendars were mechanisms of communication between space-time structures and souls. And then that's the resource that they have of orientation and the projection. Okay. Now, what happens? So there was like, okay. So there has to be a change here, because if not, there's no errors, meaning there's no, challenges. You see, the hippie ideal world is like there's no challenges. It's just chill out and live cool. That sounds very good for the soul, but can you imagine for like reality who wants to learn, and it doesn't, it wants something different. No. So it creates the schism, this cut here. It creates a cut in 1582, and it's a cut. Leaving these kind of, like the genetic projections a bit kind of like, oh, and the kind of consequence of that disconnection, we could say there's a relationship of the First and Second World War, and the agreement, because there's something there with the agreement that took place after the Second World War that happened on the same date with which the Julian calendar ended. Maybe in another day we can look at that connection, but that was an effect, that was an aftermath, okay? Because that is just a level of disconnection completely. But if something is disconnecting, another thing is reconnecting. So now let's look at the reconnect. It is the beginning of starting to reconnect this relationship. The genetic projections with reality. See? Can you see that? So it's it's not just doing what the desire of my soul wants. It's like it's not like, for example, I heard this example of Ale, and I think it's pretty good. Because when you have like, what is my tree? Each tree has a soul. Okay, what does my tree need? What is a want? What is a need? Blah blah blah. Okay, but what about the perspective of the wood? Of the whole wood. Now, if you see, that is a connection that is very important to take place, because the most important category is the wood, and then we have the tree in its own specific expression there. But if the tree is kind of self-centered, you see what I mean? And it has no kind of, so what it created was this disconnect and this reconnect. And now the feeling is, seeing all this, for example, each of us probably, I'm talking in a personal level, in this process, this is what I did. At one point, this was connected like this, but not very nicely, in the sense that there was a lot of, because the soul has a kind of a pain, we could say, So when it's just this connection, that also happens. Well, when this process began, there was a great freedom because it was like, okay, this kind of particular consciousness, this identity, this kind of okay, out of the way, because it was I had, you know, it was very limiting. It was very like, it was repeating stuff because it can only provide to its genetic projection the clarity that it has installed. Remember, the soul in Spanish, alma, and almacén is a storage. So whatever it has is stored. So how does it increase its storage? You see, well, it has to get out of the way first. You see, and the one that can increase the storage is the point of infinite creation of space and storage, which is nothingness. So that happened in this process, and it was really good. But this one, you know, it was kind of like out of the way. It wasn't integrated. So what I feel that's happening with my own process as a symptom, and probably you guys, a lot of people have told me that very similar path has happened with them, is that now it's like we can bring this one, you know, this soul consciousness, we can bring it back to its place. We can bring it back to its position, its contribution, because there is a connection between reality and the genetic projection. These are kind of connected. Okay, and this one is increasing. Why is it this one increasing? Because it's connecting with that no angle consciousness, which can increase each angle of each design of truth. Yeah. So it's like, okay. So now we can participate all together, kind of thing, you know. Space-time structures, soul, genetic projections, and each has its area of contribution, and not to stand and interfere one upon each other. Yeah. So let's begin to see each area and where's the contribution and how we integrate this whole system together. Yeah. That I'm not sure you guys, but I'm noticing that occurring. Yeah. So in a way, to say it in very simple words, I noticed the integration between spirit, soul, and body. Of course, technically, but you know, the body and the spirit have a direct connection that's very important, and the soul wasn't allowing that. Can you see that? That's when it is out of the way. Yeah, reestablishment of order, like a new psyche. I think this encapsulates that reestablishment of order. You know, it's a new world order. We could say that it's a new world organism, because it's organic areas of ourselves. So, because also if we just kind of say, okay, screw you soul, let's just put body and spirit, that connection, there's something in you that's gonna notice that something is missing. That's what happened to me. It was cool. It was great to get it out of the way for a bit, but there was something missing. And to bring it back to the participation, it was very good. It was like, okay, cool. Yeah, this is also part of the dialogue, you know. But if each time the spirit was going to communicate with the body and it had to go through the selective filter of the soul, that wasn't working, you see. And we have to know that there's a direct communication of space-time structures directly with the physical aspect, directly, and that actually is how the soul increases. With this communication, it's like this, that, because it's like, well, I'll explain it when we see each of the calculators, but so because it's not very good if the soul is adjusting everything to its own parameters of angle. What's going to happen? This one's going to be in a loop, because it's always going to be reach up to that angle. That's where that design of truth is starting to interfere. It's starting to become something to leave it. Go on a vacation for a while, come back, kind of thing. Yeah. Good. So I think that can you guys kind of see what this is bringing? You know, this new then the three psyches: limits, limitation, and reach. We'll get there. We'll get there in a moment. Bert asked me a question, and let me answer. Is like a kind of, I had a contract. I think I said the other day that there was this internal decision to be very involved. Yeah, that's going to happen. Like that's going to happen. But it's kind of sometimes, you know, the problem with that. It's kind of like asking a politician in Argentina, just to exaggerate it, to don't be corrupt. Don't be corrupt. You know, don't take money that's not yours. Okay, it doesn't work sometimes that way. So what it needs is to go to jail. Okay, it needs an experience. Needs to go to jail and that, because each you see, this depends on the maturity on each self, but there's a resistance, because there's a resistance to this openness, because it kind of really what happens is that identity kind of breaks down, and it's not a nice feeling. It breaks down and it opens. That process is not nice. So there's a resistance. There's like that resistance makes technical sense. There's a resistance because that's the mechanism through which it concentrates on that angle. It's like a resistance in electricity. But there's a moment that resistance works, and there's a moment that it's like so then it's saying, okay, don't worry about it, man. I'll just allow Spirit to provide the direct experience, and you'll kind of just have to actually open, you know. Yeah. But there is an important part that we are capturing here. There is a moment that we notice that we can do a captation and then bring it down here. Okay. But then there's another one that is just directly like that, and this one opens from beneath. You see, there's two directions. One is that the soul opens from underneath, and the other one is that it captures from like this direction. This direction is like from in nothingness, in the dark. It's when the soul can open to the dark. That's when you know that soul is in a maturity. It can open to the uncertainty. It can open to the dark. It can open to nothingness, negative, pure negative for the soul, and it can stay there calm. It's like, okay, I don't have to control the things here. I can just to the dark. Now we think that these are things that are happening because of the physical body and all that, but there's resistance that it's directly connected with our identity. Okay, so I was saying something, and I said something like because in all this we have our own because the inner dialogue that we all have, you know, of ourselves with reality, which is this is very private conversation here, very private. It's like within each soul a conversation with nothingness, you know, very, very private. So in this conversation, you know, in a way, you can just kind of, so what I started to resonate at one point was to inside to make the commitment already in a genetic projection, the commitment of being involved with Earth's process. Now, if you are existing here, there is a pact, there's a contract. Now, there's two types of contracts. One are like you are, what do you call this? Planta fija, main staff. You know, it's like in a company, you have these workers that are there every day. You know, plantilla fija, they call it. I don't know, but you know, they're there for work every day in that company. So they're very much like involved. They have a contract of being involved every day, and they even, at least in Spain, it's a contrato permanente. It's a permanent contract. It's like very involved. And then there's other workers that are maybe associated with that business, but it's like they come and go. Like a plumber, there's a problem in the plumbing, so you contract a plumber, and the plumber comes, fixes, and he leaves. So it's not permanent. Okay, can you see that? Well, in the inner register I saw is that I'm not a permanent, like the contract I had wasn't permanent. You know, like that's why you have people, you have souls that are on Earth, but they feel more connected with the sun or with other stars, or with, like they see that whatever star, and they say that's home for me. Okay, what is happening there? That they're more linked, their soul is more linked to that system, and it came in a way to provide an extra ingredient to Earth. But it's like the feeling of this is not my place, you know, this is not home or whatever. Well, I have that feeling. But for me, home isn't. Yeah, it's like they forgot the commitments. It's like of course there was, in the lucidity and the clarity it had as digital soul, there was a reason, but here, because of that kind of necessary amnesia, that kind of closing, it's here also because the psyche of the human closes that, yeah, the general psyche. That's another reason, because of the interference. You see, this is, okay, it's a technological complexity, but I'm sure you can, maybe you don't get all the pieces, but inside, you know where the reference is talking about, yeah? So the lack of commitment, or just kind of like really not being able to capture the commitments, is like, because each soul has a commitment with the space-time structures, you know? Always. It's like with the spirit, always. Then it can disconnect, it can like break the agreement and then do its own thing, and probably there's parts of the agreement, but it can do that, and so on and so forth. But some of them, very innocently, it's like, I don't want to be here, I want to be home, you know, and it's pointing to stars or to some other galaxy or something. In my you see, that's where each person has to do their inner reading. In my place, what I feel as home is nothingness. It's as if my commitment is very of the angle of the soul is very, very much in touch with nothingness. You know, very much like I feel that's home. I don't feel another star. I don't feel the earth. Like the sense is that nothingness, that's home. But for other people, nothingness is it's the scariest thing you can come up with. You saw? Okay, so you have different designs of truth. But it's like, okay, so I have this more connection, but I'm here. So, and then you start kind of getting a bit of clues of, oh, there's a commitment here. Oh, there's a responsibility here. Ah, there's a contribution here. Ah, there's a learning for my soul and for the earth and for the sun and for the solar system. You start kind of, the clarity starts coming up, which in digitally it is all there, but not analogically. And then your mentality starts to pick it up. Okay. what happened at one point, beginning of last year, I felt like to make an inner decision to commit with the process. So I'm not going to be a plumber anymore, you know? I was more like a plumber came, fixed something, and okay, guys, I'm out of here. I did my contribution. I'm going home. Just like, no. There's something that there's just, I would say, a love for the process, you know, just this incredible process of this planet and this solar system. It's just you connecting with the soul of the earth or something. It's just like, wow. It's just but you're not connecting with the social convention. You're connecting with the actual territory. And then there was something like, okay, it's like I don't want to be a plumber anymore. You know, I want to commit my contribution until space-time structures renews the contract. You see, meaning, let's put it in this way. You know, like, let's just say I finish this genetic projection. The commitment is to so using these terms, but is to come back and to do the contribution, and whatever time is necessary, whatever contribution or whatever time is necessary to project myself into the moments of greatest contribution. But others, it's like, let's say they die, and the soul just goes to Soul Land or whatever. It's like, okay, great, thanks for everything, like a plumber. And that's good. It's not, what I don't like is this feeling of playground. That's disrespectful, you know. That's because it's like, okay, yeah, but the playground is learning and is teaching you. So let's not call it a playground, you know. So others are like, I don't want to commit because for whatever, you know. That's where that's the private agreement with the space-time structures. That's a private agreement. So that's why I meant in that there was this moment like, I wanna be involved here. Other people are like, no way, once and it's enough. Screw this, you know. It's good enough to do whatever I had to do, the plumber, and I'm out of here, guys. You know, no, and it's fair, right? It's completely fair. It's like there's no, okay, great, go back home. You don't have to be here all day. Actually, you would be. You would not, it's actually good, you know. So it's like I changed the status of my employment contract. That's the feeling I had, you know. It's like kind of, when this is over, let's finish it. And it's like, no, I want to, of course, it's an agreement. It's not what I want. It's the opening and availability. And then the other part is going to see if it's like in a company. You know, like, I'm available to work here, okay, but I'm not sure if we need you. You know what I mean? It has to be a two-way agreement between space-time structures and your particular soul. It has close friend. I have a close friend who died this week. She wants to live. She died, but she wanted to live. Well, that can happen, you know. And then it goes back to more that digital gaseous area of the soul, which what tends to happen, people feel very freed up when they die. It's like, oh, great. Because you see, it's not, because when the more restriction, because there's the lack of restriction that the soul has, the genetic projection has much more restriction. But that restriction means much more maturity, much more growth. It's like, you know, let me find an example here. You know, when they kind of You know, when like before, and it wasn't so easy to get a movie, you know, like now you just go on YouTube, Netflix, and it's easy. But before, there was a lot of restriction to be able to get a movie, you know, and especially if you wanted to, there's this new release of whatever movie it was, you really wanted to watch it, but it was not easy to get that movie. Yeah, it's like a lot harder. There's much more restrictions. Now, the moment you got that movie and you start to watch it, or the movie or a book or something, the involvement in it, the concentration, the absorption of that movie, it was fantastic. Now, when you have movies, like you can watch a lot of things, and what tends to happen is that because of that so much openness, you don't really focus and absorb what you're watching. Have you noticed that? Yeah. Oof, I said 2 hours. I'm terrible. You see, I need more restrictions. More restrictions, because then I can. But when I feel I have a lot of time, I don't maximize. You see, this is a maximizing of wisdom, of maximizing, because it's very restricted. You see, it's a very much restriction. So that's why when people have these kind of experiences that of like leaving the restriction and all that, it's like, oh, this is great. I don't want to come back here, you know. This is great. It's like openness and all this. But you see, there is a reason why you decided to come here, because of that opportunity of restriction. That opportunity of restriction is an opportunity of maximizing and growth. Because at the end, if these three all have in common is the same goal, to grow to expand their awareness at the end, through experiences, but to expand awareness. Of the general, of the particular, and of the particular projection also. So David wants to learn. David. And then that soul also wants to learn, but David also wants to learn. And that's contributing to the physical expression of the general consciousness of Earth. Yeah? Okay, so that's what I meant, more or less, or what I said the other day. I think a break now, yeah? I think a break would be good.
Like a bird on a tree,